Check. All right, here we go, live and direct. This is Minister Henry Howey Jr. coming live and direct to you on my second live here at YouTube. This is Brother Henry, Brother Hank from the Full Fold, for all of my YouTube friends, coming to you live and direct, trying to learn this StreamYard system and other devices like OBS, Ecamm, and other new tools for our YouTube content creators all around the manosphere, the Black manosphere, the YouTube world. And I'm so excited to be learning this wonderful tool and to be using it for the glory of God and for the education of our people. I like to spout fair use policy. Fair use. This will be fair use driven, following all of the YouTube rules and regulations from our YouTube private policy for all content creators. My ultimate goal is to help develop, touch, transform myself first of all, and then also those that the Lord allows me to meet and to minister to and be ministered to by. I'm a 20-year Christian veteran walking with God since February 16, 1997. And I am passionate about ministry to our single adults from the ages of 12 all the way into the ages of 99. Anybody who's single and who desires to grow in God and wants to be the best single person before, during, and after marriage, because a lot of our individuals, unfortunately, are not really prepared to be outstanding singles because they never learn God's word about how to be a successful single saint. And due to some of the decisions that our ancestors have made, our parents, our grandparents, generations, since around 1970, my personal opinion is that many of our men that grew up in single-parent homes like I did are unfortunately ill-equipped to be able to be the 40-year-old father or 50-year-old grandfather or 60-year-old great-grandfather or 70-year-old great-grandfather or elder to be able to pass down knowledge to the young men on the planet before they graduate and go home. And unfortunately, that leaves our women out here to be alone and not able to succeed and able to follow and able to humble and submit. And those words I threw out, humble, submit, follow, have become such evil words and I speak for my Black community, that today a lot of our women rather be a baby mom than be a wife and mother of a family. And so men on the Black manosphere have motivated me to talk about this issue because I see such a need for it. It's hard as a brother to be in this world and not completely feel like it's almost just difficult to be able to fight. And as a person that loves Christ and loves him more than anything else in the world, my heart, my desire is for people that love him the same way to want to follow him and want to grow in his life. And for us not to just be saying all kinds of great big words, but actually have actions behind those words that touch the lives of people every day, especially those that are complete disagreeers, those who do not agree with what we're saying, to ultimately be like Gandhi, to love those that hate each other, or hate us, but to really love those who don't hate us, but just tolerate us, and to transform people's lives by our own life, by what we have done as they watch us from afar, and for those in our intimate family, watch us from the front row seat. So as I sit back today, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to kind of go through some thoughts that I have from yesterday's live stream. I did a 6-hour live stream that started off in an amazing way. And what we ended up doing was just kind of going back in my personal life. And I think that's where my thesis, part of my chapters will be on. As I'm working toward my Master's of Divinity and PhD, Doctor of Divinity degrees, my thesis, my dissertation is to defend. And I've got my goal, a good 7-8 year goal to accomplish that. But I'm on the goal now while working a full-time job and being a successful senior telecom engineer, as well as a Christian, as well as a man, as well as a boyfriend, and hopefully to be a husband and a father. And my ultimate goal, more than anything else, is to help our young men. Because when I grew up in a situation where I grew up in a single parent home, born in 1974, and with my younger brother born in 76. I grew up with a single mother who was born in 1952, graduated from high school in 1970, right at that peak time where we had a unfortunate desegregation issue from Brown versus Topeka boys. So 2 years after my mother was born, 2 years after my mother was born, Brown versus Topeka Board 1954 of Topeka, Kansas was passed across the United States, forcing that all schools are now mandatory that African Americans are able to go, and that it's no longer separate and unequal. Well, whenever you force in the United States something, you know the United States will, as the majority has done and shown us in just the last 10 years, they're going to fight you. They're not going to stand on the ground. They're not going to allow you to be able to just accept change. Change is something that it's very hard for people to accept, and they'll do anything in their power to change that movement. So even in today, as I, in the stream of consciousness, vacillate between past and present, past and present, past and present. This, of course, these are my opinions that are going to be put up with words. And of course, I don't expect everyone to agree with what I'm saying, but I guess, like I've heard on many broadcasts, if you don't like what I'm saying, sir, ma'am, start your own YouTube channel, start your own platform, put out your own content. But as far as the content that I'm going to put out, it's going to be focused on the aspect of what I've heard since I've been listening to YouTube since it started back in 2004, and the manosphere since it started roughly in 2010-11. And as a single young man at age 20 who made tragic, terrible mistakes, but then got saved. And then from that moment after I got saved, I then learned some valuable things through reading the Bible and going to churches. But then as I read the Bible, went to churches, still made more mistakes. I've taken good notes, and I'm a very introspective and reflective guy. And now I've decided, take what I've learned from my failures and give it out to people. Take what I've learned from my mistakes and give it out to people. I know some people are great and they have no mistakes. They've never messed up. They've never had a problem. Well, this channel is not for you. But for those who have made mistakes, for those who are making mistakes, for those who are growing, I tell you, it's so important to pass out that knowledge. I want to give a shout out to TLA, the lead attorney, because after watching his channel, one of my Georgia brothers here in Atlanta, Georgia, shout out to ATL, shout out to the SWATs, Southwest Atlanta, shout out to Decatur, shout out to DeKalb, shout out to DeKalb County, where I live, shout out to Gwinnett County, shout out to Cobb County, shout out to Henry County, shout out to Fulton County, right? Shout out to doggone Jonesboro, McDonough, Riverdale, shout out to the whole Metro ATL, which are almost 10 million people who live here now, and it's growing day by day. Shout out to them, because being in this place at this time, and I'm now celebrating, coming up in June of this year, I'll be celebrating 10 years since I've been here. When I moved here almost 10 years ago from Norman, Oklahoma, it was after graduating from the University of Oklahoma with my degree, another degree, management, with the desire and the passion to go into the ministry. Well, what that means is become a pastor. Well, millions of people want that role, but everybody's not going to become a pastor of a church and have a 10, 15,000 seat sanctuary and go through trying to raise money to build nonprofit kingdoms. But A lot of us are going to be pastors, and we work in a regular job, touching lives in our every day that we see, not just a small group of clique that we're in at a church, and really affecting, as Mark teaches us, preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ to the ends of the earth, doing what we call the Great Commission, and that is to tell that story of what Yeshua has done and is doing right now for us, and can do for you, or for you. So as I get into my story, I'm going to share my some screen videos. I'm going to make sure I stick to the YouTube script, and that means that we use fair use, less than 30 seconds of any video, 30 seconds of any music, and we stick to it. We don't want any copyright strikes. We don't want any issues. But I was just, as I was thinking about my blogs, I expect to make live blogs once a week. I used to just record over the last 20 years. I'm dating myself now. We had cassettes. Cassette recorders from Radio Shack. I don't know if y'all remember Radio Shack. Radio Shack was a place that sold electronics. And anybody of us that were nerds, I'm a nerd, that we had to build rockets. Shout out to NASA. Shout out to Space Shuttle. Shout out to going and visiting. Shout out to wanting to be an engineer. I'm an engineer today. Radio Shack was a place that you would, if you had the money, had the parents, had the money, go and get all kinds of remote control gadget cars and connectors. And for all the white kids that are now CEOs and executives that write code and that do all the high level $200,000 a year salaries, all those kids start off going to Radio Shack. And a lot of my black brothers and sisters, unfortunately, never had even that opportunity because mom and dad didn't have it. So basketball and sports were their only way out. And for my passion is to help those young men who didn't have a way to go to Radio Shack, who didn't have a way to learn coding, who didn't have a way to go out and to become a person at 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, when it's most critical, when the peer pressure the highest, to make the right choice, to not become popular, become smart. Because so many people, all they want to be is popular. But you can be smart and popular. But if you had a choice, you want to be smart. Smart. I want to type something real quick and show my screen. I had to kind of pause and think about that. Because as I was thinking about that, I remember years ago, it was somehow God opened a door to me. It had to be back in 1995. I was watching the Donahue show, and a brother by the name of Dr. Kawanja Kinjafu came on. Now, Donahue came on this show, and Donahue used to have a whole bunch of people. Actually, the show was in 1988. That's why I remember it, because in 1980 I was probably in the 8th grade, and 3 men came on the show. 2 of them, or 3 of them, I didn't know any of them. Well, now share my screen. Fair use, fair use. So what I share, you can be able to go online yourself, and you can be able to actually watch it for yourself. And I encourage you to do just that while I'll talk and over talk it right now. All right, here it comes. So the video was called Images of Black Men in America in 1988. Images of Black Men in America in 1988. And basically what this video was about was Dr. Kawanja Kinjafu is the first guy on the left. He is a PhD from Chicago, Illinois, and he was starting a program. And the program was African American Images. So if you look up and type in Dr. Kawanja Kinjafu, there's a website, which I'll show here. It's called www.aalbc.com. He's an author. All right. Who is Dr. Kawanja Kinjafu? Well, let's look and see what it says. educational consultant, a mentor, an author, and a lecturer. He has had over 30 different workshops. Born in Chicago, he got an economics degree in business administration from Illinois State University in 1974. That was the year I was born. He has been trying to help cities, and he's doing in a small way in Chicago, Illinois, one of the biggest meccas other than Atlanta, Georgia, for black people, because a lot of those that came out of Mississippi went straight north, and if you go straight up from Mississippi and Alabama, you go right to Chicago. And that's why Chicago has a lot of us, but unfortunately, it also is Chicago drill music, trap music, murders, and Cabrini Green projects from the 80s, and we can go into watching Eyes on the Prize. So for those who haven't seen Eyes on the Prize, I will pull that up real quick for you as well. Just like I said, it's just talking about my own thoughts, stream of conscious, things that I've read, things that I've studied, things that I have been reading on for the last 20, 25 years. Eyes on the Prize was a television series in 1990s when it first came out. It covered actually 87. I'm sorry, I said 90. It was 87. Again, I'm wrong. But it was around the same time as this video that I'm about to play a brief, maybe 30-second clip of, and then I'm going to stop it. Then I'm going to play another 30-second clip. And I believe that dues and fair use, as long as we don't play the full video, we're going to be okay. But now that you have the title, you can be able to just type in that little in the top of the search box, Donahue Show, Dr. Jawanza Kenjifu. It'll pull itself up. Okay. And so, just looking at some of the statistics on this, I'm going to now show you some of the statistics on this video. Some of the words that we like to talk about is powernomics. We talk about that, and a lot of people who study powernomics know what I'm referring to. Shout out to Dr. Claude Anderson. We can talk about a couple other videos. We can talk about Muhammad Ali when he was on Phil Donahue, Professor Griff, and the late great Dr. Khalil Muhammad, who unfortunately had a lot of information, but he died of a stroke at a very young age. Shout out to us brothers, take care of our bodies so that we can be able to live a long life. May the Holy Spirit, God, help us to get the medical treatments on any illnesses or sickness and disease that is fighting us now, so that we can fulfill the full number of years on the earth and not be dead at 45, 55, 65. And here's Dr. Jawanza Kenjifu, as he's an older man now in 2019. They interviewed him on Real Black, and they've had him talk about what's called the school to prison pipeline. That's the term that says that if young black men and black women, or women in general, men in general, don't pass the third grade basic skills test, they're on their way to going to the jails. They're on the way to dropping out of high school. They're on the way to going into juvenile, and then going straight into jail, then prison, then unfortunately becomes a tragedy like the TV show Oz on HBO, and they're caught, and the odds of them breaking out of that cycle is vicious. It almost attacked me. It's almost attacked many brothers, and if it wasn't for stern mothers that had tried to force us, a lot of times incorrectly, but they were doing their best to try to force us to live right for God, a lot of us will be out there in the street right now still messing up. But thank God we live in a time where we have YouTube. Thank God we live in a time where you can have the encyclopedia of Google/YouTube available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to be able to listen to other outstanding men that you would have never been able to fly to that city and hear it face to face. You would not be able to get that information. You wouldn't even know that man or that woman existed, because unfortunately you're trapped in the television stations, the media stations, the TV stations of your town and of your neighborhood, and the propaganda that's pushed on those channels. But now, through the advent of YouTube, we break through that propaganda. And until they try to stop us in YouTube and stop us content creators, we got a chance to help the next generation before they take us down. And we pray by faith they don't. But you know, the enemy is definitely always busy, but God is much more busier. And so I was watching videos pretty much the last 10 years, YouTube has blown up. People have been uploading videos. People have been putting on videos from 1980, from 70, from 60. I shout out to this guy named Real Black, who actually puts videos on his channel of actual 50s, 60s, 70s during the civil rights era. He's got tons of videos, black and white, of course, of our ancestors talking at that moment at 1961, at 64, at 63, March on Washington, stuff that all you can see in 2022 is video clips in black and white. But to actually know that there was a human being that was recorded on a video cam at that time, and that information is being kept and now digitized to this level, to this medium, and you can put yourself back in that time frame, it is an amazing feeling. Hallelujah. So I encourage you to go check out just Donahue, Dr. Kawanja Kinchefu. And if you notice the algorithm, and it's called the YouTube algorithm, pulls up tons of videos that are in the same area. So many of these I've watched, some of them I haven't. Thank God I will continue to watch them. And then for all of us who are smart, we can download these videos, save them into our own repertoire, just in case somebody destroys that site and you lose access to this stuff and you can't give it to your kids. But you know, the day will come where you'll be able to give this information out to your kids. You'll be able to pass it on to your children's children. And then when you're an elder and you're looking at 75 and now you're turning around and talking to that 12-year-old kid and you're able to show them information that came out in 2022 about what was going on back in 1922, 1932, 1962, 1972, 1992, you'll be able to show them what, thank God, YouTube has done. So when I was a young man, I heard about this guy named Dr. Kawanja Kinchefu. And back in 1988, he wrote this book called To Be Popular or Smart, The Black Peer Group. Now, at that time, I'm a young man. I'm in the 8th grade. I heard about him on Donahue, again, going back up to the top. And all of a sudden, what Donahue was doing, this is a white man, right? He was bringing on all kinds of stories, all kinds of people from the Nation of Islam, Dr. Farrakhan, to just Huey P. Newton. That's the man in the middle right there. Shout out to my frat brother, the great Panther, Huey P. Newton. Should have been a phenomenal lawyer. California. Shout out to Oakland, man. He had started something so powerful with the 10 points of the Black Panther Party, but unfortunately, due to that time and that, and drugs, it got him caught up. And unfortunately, the taste of that drug sometimes is overwhelming and people can't get off of it. And he died tragically, but his memory is still in us. And as Sigmas, we acknowledge him every year. I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, found on the campus of Howey University, Friday, January 9th, 1914. Thank you for celebrating our 108th year this month. Hallelujah. But the fact is that I didn't know about the Black Panthers growing up. I grew up in Florida, North Florida, matter of fact. And North Florida, we call North Florida South Georgia. And the reason being is because Georgia, everybody knows if you are from Georgia, there is Atlanta and there's Georgia. There's Atlanta and then there's Georgia. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Atlanta is the place that most of the blacks are now moving back to. It's the place that everyone is basically coming back, and they are like saying, man, I don't want to be up in New York and struggle in Brooklyn and be in projects and have no space and have to pay, $2,000 for a small 600 square foot apartment, rent control. Or be in Chicago and do the same thing, or be in LA and do the same thing. But in LA, it's a hell of a lot different. In LA, they got you strapped into a little box called South Central, and everybody around you is blessed, rich, full of money, full of power, right? And so what ended up happening was, and those that never travel don't see this, but what ended up happening, fair use. We're getting ready to press play. Let me pause this so we don't get striked, and we get only do 30 seconds of each clip. Try to find a good part of the clip, and then we'll go forward. The good news is I can let this play as long as I don't have any quality of sound, and I can talk over it. So this will be allow us to be able to. This actually looks like this is Sally Jesse Raphael. I thought this was Phil Donahue, but it's Sally Jesse Raphael. Sally Jesse Raphael. So Sally Jesse Raphael, another person, Ricky Lake. This is all in the 90s. We call this the shock jock era. Jerry Springer, of course, Donahue. They all had these shows back in the 90s. I'm a class of 1993 when I graduated. So we were the first in Jacksonville, Florida. As I said, there's Georgia, there's Atlanta, there's North Florida, South Georgia, and then of course there's Orlando, there's Miami. That's in Florida and Georgia, Deep South. We're considered the Deep South. Black people, unfortunately, we have a history that comes from basically the war, Civil War. And growing up, we're all taught the Civil War. We're all taught that black people basically were slaves, that we didn't know anything, that we basically are, as a lot of people would say it, we are not smart. We're athletic though, man. We can play ball, we can run the ball, we can do anything. But it's just like in slavery, we're a bull. And what is a bull in terms of sex? Those that don't know what terms of bulls and cuckolds and stuff, they may not know this word, but there is a world out there, especially in places like New York and big metropolitan places, where black men are used as sexual objects for white women and for women in general. There are women out there that will pay black men, athletes specifically, to have sex with the husband's consent, with the husband actually videotaping in the home. This is a term called cuckold, C-U-C-K-O-L-D. Comes from France because people over in Europe are notorious for open sexuality. Is when you go and study history, you find out about Greece and homosexuality. You find out about Sparta, and you find out about boys and men trying to have sex with young boys. So of course, it's historically homosexuality has been going on in Europe for a long time. So even though today we talk about homosexuality in the aspects of quote unquote America, it goes back to the word. It goes back to Lot in the Old Testament. Okay, it goes back to Lot and his wife being turned to a pillar of salt in Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, but off of that subject, black people in the North Florida and South Georgia, because I'm North Florida, Jacksonville, named after Confederate General and President of this United States, Andrew Jackson. It's a city that's straight Republican. It's a city that if you have ideas of, freedom, fighting for wealth, capitalism and freedom, small government, meaning no government jobs, very limited, private enterprise, basically working for European-owned creative businesses. And if you're smart enough to get into those jobs and work for a European like this gentleman right here, you're good. But what about the guys and girls who couldn't go to school and get the skills like myself and pass the higher degrees to get into those rooms? They're in trouble. They're in trouble. They can't get in. So what ends up happening, of course, is the streets. Shout out to my boy Hoopio Newton. He's a PhD. That's what I'm going for, baby. May he rest in power. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Very intelligent man. Never seen a man like that. I'm gonna let him hear 30 seconds because we can't show all of this, and I'm gonna stop and let him talk. Here we go.
You sound like you're glad he made these comments here.
Now, if whites would like to be superior, they would allow blacks to enslave them for 400 years, and their weaker gene lines would die out. So I think that Jimmy the Greek is unfairly treated by the station that fired him. And I think the other group that probably would have a superior gene line based upon reproductive survival success are Jewish people who've been driven and murdered for years. And I would like to emphasize it has nothing to do.
Right off the top of the dome, man, he just went deep on you in like 30 seconds, hit you with so much stuff that I hate to say it. You got to be a well-read man. You got to have a lot of vocabulary words in your mind. It's European vocabulary words, German words, Latin words. You gotta go back, I hate to say it, to the liberal arts and sciences to get that knowledge, because in higher learning, that's what they force you to read. Lots of European literature, lots of literature that comes out of Africa, obviously, comes out of Egypt. But unfortunately, due to slavery and the slave trade, all that stuff was taken into Europe and has been inculcated, obfuscated, and pushed out to America and the world. And if you're able to get mentors that have gone through the intellectual process to find out where the secrets are, to know where to go and show you where to go and show you what to read and who to look for, you can find out some of those secrets. But for many of us, this ain't taught in elementary school, public high school, public junior high. And so growing up, I was a guy who went to the typical public schools. And shout out to my mother, the late great Marita Reedy, who is in heaven. She passed away 20 years ago this year. She raised me and my brother Damien. She raised us with this mindset, and I think a lot of parents have done this, that you have nobody here but yourself. You got to fight to get what you need. You got to fight to be able to accomplish things. But for a lot of us, we still needed our fathers. We still needed men. And that's the passion I have as a singles minister, to help our men become fathers, so that our women can be able to have the help. Because unfortunately, a lot of times couples make love, children are conceived, the relationship doesn't work, wasn't never meant to work, people were incompatible, but a child is born. Now that man grows up, he is wondering what happened to mom and dad, angry as he should be, because he did not deserve to have to experience that. But unfortunately, life goes on, and mom does the best she can. And when those questions come, like that happened to me with my mother, why did dad leave? Why are y'all not married? Why? All the whys. And then, of course, the answer comes, as most of us black people who have grown up in the in the hood know, comes to a point where mama says, "'Cause I told you so." Oh boy. Once that hits as a young man, it's the whole fear of God. I brought you in this world, I'll take you out. All those words that Big Mama throws at you, you just kind of like cower. And the manhood that God has put in men to grow up to be men, a lot of it's coward at that moment, because dad was never there. He's gone, right? He's with a new woman, making new kids, make his own life. Child support, if that person pays child support, is involved. But in my mom's life, my father never paid child. He ran, hid, didn't do any of those things like a lot of men, unfortunately, have done in the 70s and up to today. And of course, the court system now has done a lot to try to bring men to pay child support. But the reality is this: even if you bring the court system in, shout out to the lead attorney, who is phenomenal, who talks about divorce, who talks about custody, who's been a 20-year divorce lawyer. Thank you, for lead attorney, for moving me to create my own channel, and for all of us that you pushed through YouTube Elementary to create our own channels, find our niche, our excellence, and then push that. And I salute anybody who listens to this. If you have an area that God has given you to develop, please start creating content. Take YouTube Elementary, get on this Patreon page, pay the money for consultation, learn the stuff before you get into it. I spent 6 months watching his videos before I even did this live, and my first live was yesterday. Okay, so you just don't want to get in this world without spending a lot of video hours on your own, sitting there watching him talk, listening to his conversations, then of course jump in. Pay the money. It's worth it if you feel that you're serious about making this into a business, which I am, because this is a business, okay? This is a legal business, and it should be. If you have an expertise in the area, you should get paid for what you do, and you should touch lives at the same time. Back to where I was at. So, as I stated, from that particular perspective, I didn't go deep and ask my mother these type of questions, right? And so what was my image as a black man in America? What is the image that I'm supposed to have as a black man? Well, it was pretty much athletics. We didn't see anything when it came to football. Sport. Other than rocket scientist or astronaut. I was fortunate. I lived in Jacksonville, Florida, so we had this place called Cape Canaveral. And we had this place called Space Center, the Space Center, Johnson Space Center. And so back in 1986, that's what I had to say, I was in the 5th grade, a tragedy happened that I never, ever let go of my life. And it touched a lot of people during 86, January 1986. There was a space shuttle named the Challenger. And there was a teacher by the name of Krista McCullough. And this lady was going to be the first teacher. She came out of somewhere up in, I think it was Connecticut or Maine or something, but she was a white teacher that had got the opportunity to be on this particular trip in order to kind of push the space NASA people to get Americans back involved in the space, because there was the whole 1969 moon landing, but pretty much we're in 1986. People ain't caring about space shuttles, and what the space shuttles were doing from 1996 all the way up until then was shooting up satellites in order to map the whole Earth. Shout out to Google Maps. And that's why we got Google Maps today, because of all those flights that put those satellites in those different orbits. But we had in the 5th grade, I was in the 5th grade at the time, and all of the teachers, I was at a place called Fort Carolina Elementary, 5th grade. And all the teachers across the country were going to watch via satellite feed this space shuttle go up, and its 3-minute ascent to orbit. And so we had a nice old-fashioned 32-inch TV in our little room. It took all the kids, it has white kids, black kids, and we all sitting in our seat, and we were on camera watching what's happening down in Titusville, right there in the middle of Florida, and millions of schools across the United States are doing the same thing at the same time, except time zone difference. So they had the flight, I think it was like 11:30 in the morning, and it was freezing cold. So what ended up happening, simple thing that should have never happened, the O-ring, which is a ring that surrounds the solid rocket booster, froze. So when that hot gas was coming through those two SRB, solid rocket boosters, gas was able to come through this O-ring that's supposed to block this high oxidated gas, and it then hit the external fuel tank, which was orange, had a lot of fuel, and it blew up just only, if I'm correct, 36 seconds after liftoff. And they got a show on, if you go watch it on Netflix, called The Challenger. And it's now, 30 plus years later, they're talking to people who are still alive, who are either wives of the astronauts or people who are on the NASA space system. We find out that they had a conference where the engineers, I'm an engineer, so it makes me passionate about this. They had a meeting and they said, hey, if the temperature outside goes below 32 degrees, you shouldn't launch. But there was some executives at the top that said, wait a minute, man, we've canceled this launch like 5 times. We got to launch, man. We got the world watching. You know what I'm saying? We got to launch this thing because we got Krista McCullough. If we don't launch, we're gonna lose money from the government on our NASA program. Well, it went to 28 degrees in Florida. If it goes to 28 degrees or below 28 degrees, the oranges will die. Florida is not used to cold snaps at all. Okay, we go crazy in Jacksonville, and that's North Florida. Okay, that's South Georgia, North Florida. If it even gets to 30 degrees, okay, and freezing's 32, of course. And I lived there for about 20 years, and I can truly say we only had snowed only one time. So we watching this. I'm a 5th grader, 13. I think I'm not 10 years old, 5th grader. And I'm watching this thing go up, and I'm like, oh my God, I want to be an astronaut. Oh my God. They had a black man on that trip. His name was Ronald McNair, Omega Psi Phi brother, PhD, doctor, plays saxophone, martial artist. This black man overcame prejudice, racism from South Carolina, okay, where our family from. Shout out to Lancaster County, South Carolina, Rock Hill. Shout out to Charleston, South Carolina. Shout out to the Howey family. And my other side of the family from Macon, Georgia, which is Middle Georgia. We call that Plantation City, Georgia, Cotton, Georgia. You run through Middle Georgia, you run through South Carolina, you see those cotton for as far as eyes can see, white cotton during the white cotton times. And it's the most scariest, but it's the most amazing, shocking feeling to know that your ancestors were out there. And I'm talking when you can see 4 straight miles outward and you know it's nothing but cotton, and know that our people had to pick that cotton every day for 200 something plus years. And now today, I'm an engineer and I don't have to pick that cotton. We got to tell our kids these things, because a lot of our kids today don't know, because they don't have access, or they're not being given access. But we got organizations out there that are doing our best. Shout out to every fraternity in the Divine Nine and all the different groups that we have for each of our different fraternities. Shout out to our churches. Shout out to those that are working with the Boys Club. Shout out to YMCA, YWCA, Boys Club of America, Eagle Scout, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts. But still, it's not enough. It never will be. We got to always keep working. So I remember that day, and I remember when he said the magic words. He said, they're getting ready to do what's called go at throttle up. And if you ever watch the shuttle launch, it's only about 3 minutes long for it to go from Earth to the first orbit. And they're like roughly about, I think it's 60 seconds. It blew up 73 seconds after liftoff. So it's a minute and 10 plus seconds. They say the word every about a minute after the launch, go at throttle up. Go at throttle up. When the commander gives go at throttle up, you respond back, go at throttle up. This is a military term. It's called order. When order is given from a superior officer to the person receiving the order, it's like, yes, sir, and they copy, or we say belay. Belay means repeat. They repeat that order. So go at throttle up. When that happened, of course, it blew up. And then from that moment, we watched those parts of the shuttle take 3 minutes to fall back down to the earth, because of course they're broken up into millions of little pieces. And at first we like, what's going on? They're still alive. They're still alive. They got to be alive. They got to be alive. They got to be alive. And then we find out and realize about maybe a minute later that they would not make it, because the shuttle was never meant to blow up like it blew up, and then people survived, and no one survived, of course. Everybody passed. But it still was a shock to me, because I'm in the 5th grade. Okay. And then, of course, from that moment, I was like, I'm going to work. I'm going to be an engineer. I'm going to learn, and I'm going to grow. But everyone doesn't have that tragic moment where they see something, they go, because of that tragedy, I'm going to become that. And that's what I think we got to unfortunately help our kids, because one thing about our kids, they've all have seen tragedy, but they don't necessarily believe that they can go beyond the tragedy. That's why TV shows like The Wire, which I love. Shout out to Baltimore, Maryland, Dave Simon. Shout out to old mom, may rest in peace, Mr. Michael K. Williams. Shout out to all the leaders of Will Wood Harris. Even though I know that's a horrible show, it's a real show. And so right here, Dr. Juanjo Kinchfu is going to say some points. And as I've been talking about 43 minutes, I just want to say thank you for Fishing with Truth, for jumping on. And I see your link. I'll make sure I show. Thank you so much, brother. I think you're on TLA. I think I've seen you at TLA before. You're my brother from Jamaica. I can't wait to come down to Jamaica, baby. And I can't wait to be able to fish, because I always wanted to come down there, man. I think you're in Puerto Rico. You're either Puerto Rico or Jamaica. But I definitely look forward, man, to do one day catch some fish like that, man. I'm 47. I'm young. So I'm hoping when I'm 55, man, I'm hoping I can do that once a year on my vacation, baby, because I've never been to Puerto Rico. I've never been to Jamaica. TLA loves to speak that Spanglish. I'm from Georgia, but we don't speak that much Spanish up here, you know what I'm saying? But I appreciate you, boss. I appreciate you. And I see Mrs. Carolina. All right, a shout out to you, my sister. I appreciate you joining, and I appreciate you putting that post in. Thank you so much. And again, back to you, bro. Yes, you're in Puerto Rico. That's what's up. Oh, you are in Puerto Rico. I thought you was in Puerto Rico. Yeah, I remember you said you was in Puerto Rico. I think I'll be watching TLA, weekly, man. I see you on there. And I can't wait to get to that point where I'm able to bring people on and have lives, boy. But I can't wait to see your channel, man. Maybe you can start putting some stuff on, showing us how you catch that fish. Cause I'm wondering, how do you catch that fish, man? What kind of boat you got? Cause when I watch people on YouTube and I see that boat, man, they be having some expensive boats out there, boss. You know what I'm saying? We're talking like big old. I fished off of piers. I like going to the pier. You know what I'm saying? Oh, Lord, appreciate that. Yeah. And in Jacksonville, Florida, we have like 7 bridges. So we have this river called the St. Johns River, and it's the only river in the United States that flows backwards. It flows from the south to the north. The only other river in the whole wide world that does that is the Nile River in Africa. So it's kind of a weird thing growing up. We had to learn this stuff. But this river, the St. Johns River, of course, is dirt black. It's brown. It's brown. And when I went down to Tampa for the first time back in 2013, I went over this long sky bridge for the first time, and I saw the most beautiful water that was green, and this bridge had to be like 5 miles long, and I was scared as heck. Well, I'm gonna tell you that right now, because you're on the top of the water, and all you can see is this Tampa Bay, this bay. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm an inward guy, so to be going over a bridge, I'm sitting there. I got my Camaro, I got my yellow Camaro, and I'm driving really at the speed limit. Everybody by me going, boom, boom. I'm in the right lane, they just left lane going. You know what I'm saying? And so, okay, you're off the beach. That's what's up, boss. That's what's up. And so, I remember going from, I was going to Clearwater Beach because my father is down there. Sorry, my dog was barking in the background. And I went to Clearwater, and I was just taking a trip through Tampa, and I'm going, wow, man, you got to come up to Tampa, bro. I know you're in Puerto Rico, brother. I can't wait. I hope do you visit the United States, man? You know, you're a citizen, so you should be able to come up here, come up to Georgia sometime. You know, we'll take you to the lake. We got lakes up here, and you can see like Lake Buford up in Atlanta. Meet TLA, meet a lot of the brothers who are content creators up in the ATL. You know, we're trying to build that black manosphere up in Atlanta. You know, but I definitely look forward to coming to visit you, boss. I always want to go to Puerto Rico. You know, I've always wanted to go to Cuba, Havana. Now we can go to Cuba. Now we can go to Dominican Republic. All my friends been to Dominican Republic, and everybody like, oh, you got to go to Dominican Republic. But really, I want to go to Haiti. I really want to go to Haiti. You know what I mean? I straight up with that, man. I feel you. Oh, thank you, bros. Yes, sir. But I definitely appreciate that. So what I'm gonna go back and show you this guy. Here's Dr. Jawanja Kinjifu. This was way back in 1988, and he's now, praise God, I think he's almost maybe 80 now. So for those that don't know, I appreciate jump on this cat. Images of Black Men in America. He's got like 20 different books. He's got a whole curriculum on images of Black men by learning about Black history. He spent a degree in economics, but he went off from economics more into social and sociology because he realized that helping his own people was what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? That's what you got to do. So let me play this clip until 30 seconds of this, and let's see what he says.
Only 4,000 will be able to make it to play college ball. Of that 4,000, only 35 will make it to the NBA. Of that 35, only 7 start. And the average life in the NBA is 4 years. So the real problem is we have 1 million brothers looking for 7 full-time jobs that last 4 years. And yet last year we had 100,000 jobs available to be a computer programmer, engineer, or doctor, and only 1,000 brothers qualified. So our appeal to Black males is to realize the odds. That you do most will be that you do best. I mean, we were the first doctor, not Hippocrates, Imhotep. So we have the ability either in math or science or music and sports. But that you do most will be that you do best. If you play...
Boom. Come on, somebody. That what you do most is that what you do best. That what you do most, he said it, is that what you do best. Shout out to Dr. Jawanja Kinjifu. Now, he said this in 1988. Now, back in those days, Donahue was the big, this wasn't a Donahue show. This was another show that I think was in Chicago. So I think it's WGN. But he also was on this white man named Donahue who had a syndicated show across the United States that came on like 10 o'clock for all of us who are in school, of course. Those all the white women who be at home. But thank God somebody recorded on VCR cassette, and then they kept it and they kept it and they kept it, and we got it turned into digital form. We can watch it in 2022. I didn't even watch this. I didn't even know this even existed. The first time I watched this video, I happened to be taking an African American AFAM. We call it in black schools. We have a program now called AFAM, African American Studies Program. And thank God, I went to a white university, University of Oklahoma, 35,000 students, only 5,000 African Americans, and we had an AFAM program. So if you're a black person going to a mega mass school like University of Florida, Alabama, Georgia, who just won the national championship here last week, they are we call the bastions of learning, right? The higher learning. If you watch the movie back in the day, shout out to Ice Cube, shout out to John Singleton, man, shout out to Higher Learning, great movie, shout out to Deja, shout out to Oh My Eps. That movie touched my life. It made me, I got to go to college. I got to go to college. But it was hard as hell to get through because I had such weaknesses, such areas of lack in my life. I wasn't trained. I wasn't taught at 5 years old, you're going to go to college. It was until I saw a lot of my friends make tragic mistakes when I'm at the age of 21 and said, okay, I'm going to college. And I didn't get to go to college until I was 29. I was a 29-year-old freshman, okay? 29-year-old where everybody in college is doggone 19. They knew they were going to go to college. They're out of high school. They're ready to jump in the dorms. They're ready to go have sex with anybody they want to. They're ready to be a man or a woman. And they know they're going to get, the white women knew they were finding husbands. The black women knew they're going to get that PhD. They ain't worried about no man. A lot of our sisters, that's why Dr. Kevin Samuels hit so hard. Shout out to Kevin Samuels and shout out to him talking about, I don't need a cookbook, or the wonderful quote, I'm a PhD. I'm a PhD. And that statement is a big issue in the black community back then in the 80s, 90s, today. And so for all my brothers out there who want to find a beautiful wife, you got to know all this stuff because this is a part of the image of black men, that you don't need a black man. That women says, I don't need a black man. In essence, what they're saying is, I don't want a black man unless I can control them, unless they'll let me control them. But the way black men and men in general are raised is that we are wanting to be in control. We're wanting to lead. We're called to lead. We're called to be in control. But how are you in control if you've been raised by a woman? Your father was never there to raise you during those critical ages of 0 to 18 and give you wisdom from 18 to 35. So by the time you're 35, you're now a mature adult. So that when you hit 45 middle age, you're now a mature middle-aged adult. To be at 65 and an mature elderly adult, you don't have that, right? But one thing we all men know we can do, what? We can have sex. We can make babies. We can go out there and we can do the things that we want to do physically, because ain't no woman that knows a sexy-looking man is going to just get away from them. They want you just as bad as we want them. But unfortunately, that's only for the area of sex. But see, the way it's supposed to be is that sex may be the attractor, but it's the mind and it's the vision and it's the desire to be a successful person that makes you into a future grandfather. And that's what it's all about. And so in this episode, they talked about a few questions that these panelists had given to these three men. And the men in the audience, and I'm going to scan through and let you see without, I'm going to put it on mute. I'm going to let it play. So you can't hear the sound. We can let it play as long as you can't see the sound, but you can all see the subtitles, so you can actually read what's being said. Let me turn off this thing here, and now you should be able to see the subtitles. There we go. So now the subtitles should play through, and you should be able to read and hear what they're actually saying. And it's very deep. I give credit to whoever did the subtitles because they're able to encapsulate from way back. We're talking 1988. Some things that are applying to us right now in 2022, and it'll be here in 2025, in 2030, 2035, and 2045, and 2055. But no matter how long it's here, we're going to have a remnant of people that's going to grow and know how to overcome it. and know how to walk in dignity and walk in the power and walk in the excellence that these men kind of showed us. Dr. Juan Kenjifu has an actual program, and in Chicago, Illinois, they have a actual all-males boys school where 100% of their classes, they graduate like 100 to 200 young 18-year-old black. It's a black male only program. They graduate 100 a year, and every one of them gets a scholarship. And of course, it's a 1-year recurring scholarship based upon you making those grades. Nothing's permanent. You got to pass your test to a Division 1, 2, or 3 college. And in reality, and this is the thing that I wasn't taught when I was growing up, everyone can't go to the university that I went to. They can't go to Harvard or Yale or Princeton or Georgia Tech, right? Or Palo Alto, Stanford, right? Or University of Oklahoma. We call that a state-run school. That's called a tier 1 school in the statistic world. But then you have what's called the Ivy League school, which is a way above, which is up at the higher levels. Those people, hopefully I'm still talking. Am I talking? Make sure you can hear me. Let me make sure I can see myself. Check 1 2 1 2. Yeah, yep. Okay, the microphone's working. Good. I wasn't sure. And so, and I tell you straight up, I don't think everyone should go to a top-notch school unless you have been inculcated in that system in high school. If you are a black person that grew up, for example, here in Atlanta, I'm here in Atlanta, and if you went to an all-black school in Atlanta, which we got tons of them here because we have a huge population of African American people. Thank God, because the only way to really have power in America is through numbers. Integration. Thurgood Marshall, shout out to Honorable Thurgood Marshall. His idea he thought would work in 1954 with Brown versus the Topeka, Kansas Board of Education from Topeka, Kansas. That's one state above my University of Oklahoma. That would get black people to get into white public schools because all the money was being diverted to white public schools and not being diverted to black schools. Even though they lied to say it's separate and equal, but it was really separate and unequal. The catch, though, and this is for those that play chess, they understand this point. When you make a move in chess, the opponent's making a counter move, and your job is to anticipate their move and have your counter move to make their move. And so over a chess game, there may be 60 move to counter move, move to counter move, move to counter move. And then what ends up happening is you checkmate the actual whoever checkmates the opponent's king, which means trap it, where the king can't move left, right, up, or down on the board. The game is over. That person has, quote unquote, won the game. Well, a chess game could be if you play fast speed chess, it's 5 minutes. If you play regular old-fashioned chess, it can be 5 hours. It's a game. It's a mental strategy game. It's the ultimate of ultimate games. It's the game that teaches Europeans and those of other races, and they play it all across the world. Countries play against country in the World Chess Championships. There are chess studios that teach chess to kids right now because chess is the game that teaches you how to get into Harvard. It's the game that teaches you the mental acuity that will get you into the top-notch jobs in the world. Europeans know this. Black African-American students, they are learning it. They're learning it. Shout out to Cuba Gooding Jr. because Cuba Gooding Jr. did a phenomenal movie recently with Dennis Haysbert. I'm gonna stop because again, I think y'all got the gist of this video. And I encourage you to go watch it. But as I'm talking, it's a stream of consciousness, of course. The whole goal of this video is to allow me to drop information that I know from my experience. And then hopefully brothers and sisters add comments and give me some thoughts on what I could add in my quote unquote future blogs. Again, this is a prayer blog and we're going to pray, of course. But most and foremost, I wanted to kind of give an understanding of what I'm praying for. And I'm right now praying for our people in the area of education, the area of help, because it's a battle, it's a war going on. But there was a movie called The Life of a King with Cuba Gooding Jr. Cuba Gooding Jr. is a phenomenal actor from Boys in the Hood that played the famous Ricky and Boys, not Ricky, but Ricky's friend in Boys of a Hood. He also played some phenomenal movies. One of my favorite ones is called Men of Honor, a true story that he played a real life person that had served as a diver in the Navy during the segregation period. Master Chief Carl Bashir. He played that role, a real true life person who became the first black master diver, E9, in the Navy. One second, I got a call coming in. Peanut kind of nodded his head like, oh, look at that. Everybody sat down. You know what he did? He said, what you down for, Peanut? You ain't nothing. So because he ranked on Peanut, Peanut was like, because Peanut was like, oh, man, I won this thing, you know. But no, no more than that. No more than that. Yeah, I'm good to go. I'm good to go. I'm good to go. hmm So we're gonna stop there. Cool. Okay. Yeah. So right now I say thank you guys for watching. It's time to get to work. It's been great. May God richly bless you. And let me stop sharing my screen. And let's get, as they say in the lesson, we are almost, they say, come on, where is it at? Gone.